I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk now.
Hello and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am an editor at TheRinger.com, and joining me on the other line from the House of Guinness, it's Andy Greenwald.
I'm not, though. I'm one of the, what are they called? The Fennies? The Feenies? The Fiends.
The Fienans?
The Fienans.
Yeah,
yes,
you're
no
not
disrespect.
a Feenan, my guy. Yeah, Feenan, yeah.
Which are the ones that are like pro-England? Because that's where I am.
that's
I'm not saying
you.
that's what I am, but that's where I am.
Greenwald is in London. I am in Philadelphia. It's an East Coast America old world podcast today. Andy, it's great to see you. We're going to talk a little bit about the last couple episodes of the Lowdown that we've seen, episodes 3 and 4. We're going to talk a little bit about House of Guinness. I have some other stuff for you today. It's great to see your face. How's England treating you? You're muted.
Well, I was going to say it's a country and experience of highs and lows. One of the lows being my brand new travel microphone that has a mute button right on the soft spot where I like to touch the microphone. So that's going to be fun. I'm going to be like Stephen Miller when I say my opinions about House of Guinness. Just going to be like, are you there?
Wait, when does Stephen Miller ever cut out?
You didn't see this clip?
No.
That's the thing. I've been awake for hours. So, they were interviewing him on CNN, and he was like, "We declare plenary freedoms, plenary authority to deploy troops." And then he just stopped talking because he realized he'd given the game away.
He was committing an act of treason.
Sure. Anyway, I was going to say, allegedly, I can do that now. By the way, because I'm in a different country. It would be funny
if The Watch was Stephen Miller's way of getting away from it all. She was like, God, it's been tough. I've been invading multiple cities.
Why won't these guys weigh in on English teachers S2? I would say that my experience has had some wonderful highs. Like this morning when I was strolling down the lane, schlepping this new microphone and recording rig, and a very kind Englishman said that hi, and he said he loved the pod. Mm-hmm. I would say the lows include there is a washer dryer in this flat that I've now run a small load of clothes on the dry cycle twice. Yeah. Each cycle is 2 hours and 50 minutes.
They don't have electricity over there. It really does make you wonder. Like I definitely want to save the planet. I worry about my carbon footprint. I do think that America is going to be a giant data center soon. Yeah. But it is cool to be able to dry your clothes in like 20 minutes.
I mean, to dry my boxers and my sweatshirt is equivalent to how many Genmojis? Like just put it to me, give me the numbers. Exactly. I would also say the other tell that I'm far away and that the jet lag is roaring is like when you were deep asleep last night, I was definitely weeping to the live performance of Golden by the real actresses who play Huntrix in K-pop Demon Hunters on the Jimmy Fallon program.
Talking about. This definitely feels like where you're breaking from reality with me.
Listen, this might be a vulnerable pod. It's all right.
It might be. I wanted to kind of keep it pretty loose today. Thursdays are chaotic episodes. There are a couple of news things that I wanted to bounce off of you. So I'm on the East Coast because I was here to do a big picture live show with Sean and Amanda.
How'd that go?
It went great. It was really, really fun. It was at 92Y, 92nd Street Y. It was with David and Griffin from Blank Check, which is an awesome movie podcast that people should be listening to if they don't already. And we were drafting New York movies. It was very fun. The spirit of cinema was in the air in New York City because the New York Film Festival is currently underway. And, Sean was hitting up a couple of movies from there. And like the night after our show, Monday night. So our show is Saturday. Monday night, Marty Supreme, the new Timothée Chalamet movie that's coming at Christmas, did a surprise screening on Monday night for NYFF. And it was like pandemonium called, like in terms of like the word of mouth.
Did you see it?
I did not see it, but
did you see Sean fired off an all-time tweet? We might need to read it on this podcast. Great tweet, Sean. Truly.
But my kind of observation about it was just that like there really is, I think between one battle after another, a lot of stuff. Like we are moving into award season with movies, but we are definitely in like a state of like peak hype for movies where I think that because of how vibrant online cinephilia, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, like film fandom and film criticism is. There's like an ecosystem to promote and hype up and at times knock down films. And, I think, they Big Picture did a conversation with Van over the weekend about One Battle After Another. It was basically like an expanded conversation and expanded in-depth kind of look at it that I felt like it was just really a cool thing to listen to after many, many rounds of hosannas being thrown at One Battle After Another. So I was thinking about all this, and I noted with real interest yesterday that the Heat 2 casting news and studio news just exploded. It's moved from Warner Brothers to Amazon, MGM. Jerry Bruckheimer and Scott Stuber, two incredibly heavy hitters, are attached to produce it. And Leonardo DiCaprio is apparently circling the Chris Shiherlis, the Val Kilmer role rather than the Neil McCauley role. So this is crazy amount of news. It does seem like this is happening. I still wake up every day and I'm like, this can't be real, but it really, really, really does seem real. The reason why I'm telling you about these two things is, as I kind of was getting ready for today's pod, for pods in the future for the two of us, I was like, why doesn't TV have this kind of hype around it? I was thinking about Pluribus, the new Vince Gilligan show that's coming on Apple, which is from the creator of Breaking Bad. And it's been releasing these like very small teasers that I think are doing a great job of hyping up, like creating like a sort of interest around the show. But it doesn't have like, when's the last show that's come out that you feel like had what One Battle After Another or Marty Supreme is getting in terms of like people running out of a room and be like, I have to tell everyone? I suppose the closest thing I can think of is Adolescence. And that weekend of just like breathless, have you seen this?
I think, first of all, it's a good question. It's a complicated question. I think the only equivalent we have to wide release in television at this point is Netflix. So you can see phenomenons build almost in a classic box office sense. We saw it with Baby Reindeer. We saw it with Adolescence. Beyond that, the similarities to cinema continue because you're not really going to get giant premiere numbers for something that isn't a sequel. And by sequel, I mean either the second season of something that did very well or something that is directly based on prominent IP. That's pretty much the only way to get eye-popping numbers. Everything, which doesn't mean those are the only things that are considered hits. It's just that the language that TV executives use internally is still a lot more growth oriented with things developing over time. Like I think, for example, and we're going to, we've been talking about it every Monday, the sense I get from HBO is that they're extremely happy with Task. Not just because it's extremely good.
That's the sense I get from the people in Philadelphia as well.
Are they?
Well, there's not a lot to be happy about.
But the reason that they're excited is not just the quality, of course, but it's because the numbers apparently have gone up week to week, have ultimately outperformed Mayor of Easttown, which isn't to say the first episode outperformed the first episode of Mayor. What they're looking at is retention over time. I guess I would turn the question back to you and say there definitely is a hype cycle with movies that understands very well now how to manipulate's a strong word, how to interface with burgeoning the letterboxed army and get people fired up about format mania and all of that. There was an interesting article about the Warner Brothers, not just their success at the box office this year, but about their marketing team and all of them being under 30 and like being engaged with online life in a way that other movie studios aren't. All of that said, Smashing Machine tanked, right? Again, that's not a value judgment. It might be a great film. I would like to see it, I think. But
you love UFC.
I love Smashing. We're headed towards an era of machines. What's not to like? But that had everything. That had the full head full of steam in terms of like the standing ovation, the press tour, the narrative. Like everyone seemed to understand, like Joe Popcorn understood that like The Rock was going for an Oscar this time. And the letterbox loonies were like, which Safdie is the best? Who knows? And then it was released with an absolute thud, right? So the success of One Battle After Another, I think belies that. But all of which is to say, like, I'm excited to see Marty Supreme and I'm really hype off of it. literally because of Sean's tweet. I think he thinks I'm making fun of his tweet. I am not. Our Phillies are down 0-2 right now, so I'm not in a position to make fun of Sean. I want to be very careful, but that's no guarantee that it's going to be successful.
You're right. I mean, maybe it's this weird thing where it's like the hype is disconnected from the actual success of the film. And maybe all these TV shows that when I am anecdotally asking if somebody has seen The Lowdown and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, doesn't actually indicate whether or not people are actually watching it. They're just maybe not participating in a hype cycle around it. Obviously, you and I kind of came of age professionally in this particular part of our careers at a time when like Sunday nights ruled the pop culture week, seemingly the television Sunday night, and the recaps of those shows would kind of drive conversation around them. The idea of a water cooler show. But this is just something I've been thinking about. I mean, Heat 2 probably won't roll, I would imagine, until late next year. Let's just say if everything went really, really well and they nailed all the casting and they get Bradley Cooper, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Adam Driver to be in this movie. And it's going to be a globetrotting mega production run by an older man and Michael Mann.
Well, first of all, international intrigue plus older men is the story of Earth for the last 10 years. So I don't really see a problem.
My point is that like, this is like, I'm going to be anticipating this movie for multiple years, the same way I am for the Odyssey, and there's nothing like that in television. But then on the flip side, I don't even know if that really matters. I guess I'm just like, why isn't there more like?
Well, clearly you haven't been following my Reddit posts demanding Top of the Lake season 3. You know, I'm just like, one of these days it's going to come. It's going to come true. Monsieur Spade S2, let's go. I hear you about that, and I do want to do one more like heat check with you, like specifically about this news. But I feel like in a way this conversation goes back to something that we've said before, which is that like we are all in a Damon Lindelof show right now because we are all existing in multiple timelines at the same time. We have never been more
travels across the ocean once.
Seriously, well, did better than Oceanic, but you know, there's always the return. Because we've never been more now, like more clued into release dates, towards box office openings, towards things needing to, and also just the industry needing immediate return on these extravagant investments. Everything is geared towards the first week numbers, towards awards, towards box office, etc. But we've also never been so immersed in everything else that's come before.
Yeah.
So, and I think that our sense, like me currently with the actual Earth clock, I think our sense of what is happening gets a little bit blurred. Like we are living in a reality where these letterbox loonies are like lining up to see Marty Supreme. They're already buying their format tickets or whatever, making sure they can see it in the best seats. And they are also, going to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood every other week at the Vista, and also going to see Big Lebowski, which I think in the collective consciousness now, I'm just pulling that movie out of the air, but like that movie was not quote unquote successful.
No,
it's a masterpiece.
It's a cult classic. Yeah.
It's a classic, but it's a cult classic that I think has sort of merged into just being a classic. And I think the perception of it is that that's a success, even though it made like $30 million and was decidedly not the biggest movie of 1998 or whatever. And you could pull 100 other examples of that, right? Just to say that like there are right now on Netflix, there are out of the box hits like Adolescence, which are critical darlings and commercial darlings, and certainly cleaned up at the Emmys. But the other big story on Netflix this week is Halo is airing on Netflix. The really not that awesome, and I think originally Showtime and then Paramount Plus series that was just, I think it was just unwieldy.
And is it doing well?
Else. And it's doing well because you put something on Netflix, and so now everyone's like season 3. So both of those things are happening at once, and it's hard to square those into one easy narrative, I think.
Yeah, I guess that this is the trade-off, right? Like when you have something like Smashing Machine and it comes out and there's all this like push around it, and then it doesn't do well in one metric, the metric that really matters for new releases, which is box office, it winds up seeming like a complete failure. When you have something like The Lowdown, which we're going to talk about in a second, which I think you and I adore, will be in our top 10s. We will push that boulder up the hill. I have no idea whether it's doing well. I have no idea whether people are watching it, whether they're saving 5 episodes to kind of get into it. Whether the act of watching something week to week that isn't hugely twisty and cliffhangery has basically been abandoned, and now people are like, yeah, I'll catch up. Like when I have a flight, I'll watch 4 of those or something like that. But on the flip side of that, you're not aware of failure either. I'm not aware that this quote unquote flopped. I wouldn't even know. Well, a network would never tell us if it did, Well,
I need a second to like put on my full Lowdown cape. So we will talk about that. But I think the other thing is that there are just many different, shout out to another Lindelof show. There's a lot of narratives happening at once, meaning The Smashing Machine is a box office failure. I still think it's a huge win for The Rock, who has successfully presented himself as a serious actor, and people who make decisions about casting and awards will consider it and remember it. I think it's a failure for A24 in the sense that A24 is trying to pivot to becoming everybody's darling, not just an indie darling, and their budgets have gone way, way up. And I think they have real skin in the game now and can actually, those are not insubstantial losses when they invest a lot of money in projects like that.
It's not just
to balance it out, exactly. So it's a lot of different stories all at once. Before we get to the Lowdown, you can't say this big heat news and not just like give me your 30-second stump speech, because when I last was this is not my story to tell. But I will say that the last time I was kind of aware of it, the rumors were Apple was picking it up, and that was dependent on Leo starring in the movie.
Yes.
And Leo was assumed to be taking on the role of Neil. Is that right?
That was what I said because he had a goatee.
Okay, I see your method. Seymour Hersh over here. All right.
I just said that it looked like he looked like young Robert De Niro in the One Battle After Another promo run that he did. Now that is a basically cleaned up version of Bob Ferguson from One Battle After Another, so it's not that strange that he had the goatee. But I think that most people looked at him and were like, okay, this is young Neil, or younger Neil in the pre-Heat narrative. For people who don't know, Heat 2, written by Michael Mann and Meg Gardner, came out like 2022.
This is the book, not the film.
Yes, it was the book, and it's a novelization of an idea, or it's a novel that Mann wrote with an acclaimed crime writer named Meg Gardner that basically does a prequel to Heat, cutting back and forth between a prequel to Heat and a sequel to Heat. The sequel
it's like
to
Godfather 2.
Yeah, and the sequel to Heat follows the continuing adventures of Christian Hurlis, the Val Kilmer character in the original film, as he goes into South America and becomes security for a Chinese triad, which is basically...
That's just fan fiction, dog. That's just
we can stop the watch when I introduce you as doing that.
Do you understand that I think you told me that dream in Good Luck Bar in 2015. This is... So wild.
Where do you think Charles is now? And the pre-Heat stuff happens in Chicago, and is a younger Vincent and a younger Neil kind of just missing each other in Chicago. And there is a Waingro-esque character. I won't get into spoilers and stuff like that, but there are some incredible sequences in the novel in both the pre and post. And I imagine if they are undertaking it, and if it has a $200 million price tag, which it seems to, that he is doing, he's shooting the whole boat. He's doing the sequel and the prequel. Look, that's all I ever want in life, is to see this. But I want this to be good. I don't want this to be a strange kind of inadvertent roast of Heat, where it's like everybody's getting on stage and doing Heat bits, and that I want it to live up to what the original was. And because it's made so far from from when Mann shot Heat, which is now, in the 90s.
30 years ago.
It feels a little bit like I'm just nervous for it to be 2 years of waiting for it, and then people being like, oh, that was all right.
Well, that's how I felt about Twin Peaks: The Return, and that worked out for me. So I believe in you.
That's true. That's true.
It worked out for me by being absolutely confounding and doing almost nothing of what the normies wanted.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if Scott Stuber and Jerry Bruckheimer are confound us, Michael.
No, I think that they're we're going to make sure this actually gets finished on time, and that you are able to pull off the sequences that you need to pull off to make this a huge box office
and to make it a plausible action movie that's released in theaters. I think.
Yeah.
Not an art piece.
A lot of my nervousness comes from, despite the fact it's easy for me to like Ferrari and be like, actually, you guys don't get it. Ferrari's good, or you guys don't get it. Black Hat's good.
It is very easy for you to do that. You,
or
in fact,
Tokyo
have a
Vice
podcast
Pilot
to do that.
is awesome. And everybody's like, okay, Crystal, you just would like if Michael Mann shot like a bird landing in a nest, and I'd be
By
like,
the way, that would be on Task, I believe.
I know. That's true.
That's a beautiful sequence.
Birdman is Task. It's that's like underdog stuff. It's just, you know what I mean? That's like cheering for the 6th seed is when you're a big Black Hat guy. This is the 1 seed, man. This is an undefeated team going into the tournament. So it's a little bit more nerve-wracking, and I think from everything that I have read, everything that I've heard, everything between the lines, all of this is contingent on DiCaprio's participation. And DiCaprio has a pretty full dance card. He's supposed to be doing this Martin Scorsese movie that I believe he kind of obliquely referenced to Sean in their conversation about how he had been rewatching Vertigo for something
it's him
he's
and
doing
Jennifer
with Scorsese.
Lawrence, right?
Yeah. Then he was supposedly going to do this Evel Knievel movie for Damien Chazelle, but it seems like Glenn Powell might do that now. And yeah, like there's also this Hawaii gangster movie that Scorsese was going to make with The Rock. So as somebody's like things in production start, you know, as their dance card fills up, you just worry about like being able to hold all the actors, hold all the locations, hold all the money, and will this happen? But I think Amazon MGM getting involved in this is really interesting because in some ways it's more significant even than the casting rumors, is like producer rumors being confirmed and studio rumors being confirmed.
Can I ask you the one other thing that we still have on our plates to worry about?
Yeah, sure.
In regards to Heat 2, I worry about Austin Butler because he did a lot of weapons training, possibly for nothing.
Yeah, but he could be getting ready for Miami Vice. Like, we have no idea. Like, do you think that there's only one role out there that requires weapons training?
Yes, I watch 3 movies a year. Yes, I do think that. That is 100% what I think.
Oh my God.
Can we talk about the big TV thing? I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, please.
Of course, I'm not prepared to talk about it, but I do want to talk about it.
You're talking about the Dakota Fanning, the Elle Fanning and Nicole Kidman show Discretion.
Yes, it's a show called Discretion. And the reason I bring it up is not necessarily because we have an opinion about the show or know anything about it, although it is relevant because it's an A24 TV production. And A24 is part of their like glow up and build up is getting into TV production. This is a hot package in town. And by the way, just the fact that there's a hot package again is pretty significant considering how dire things have been for the last few months and years. This is a project that was apparently subject to a big bidding war, and it was snapped up straight to series by the new players in town. The Barry Weiss boys ponied up to the table, and Paramount has bought this show. And it's a legal thriller, is all we know. Nicole Kidman loves doing television shows. So does Elle Fanning. They're both very reliable. Also, Nicole Kidman has some free time now, I guess.
Sure. Although not much since Lioness is coming back.
That's a good point. A good point. Her dance card is still full, professionally speaking. I just thought it was worth noting. A few weeks ago, we talked about how really all it takes to shift the industry is one new whale showing up at the table, and that's what David Ellison and his dad have done. I'd be very curious what the path of the show would have been in a pre Skydance takeover era. It seems like it would have been Apple took it off the board. The implication that there was a quote unquote bidding war, I'll put it this way. Like, I don't think AMC was just, throwing in an ante and asking to see everyone's cards. Right. A bidding war to me in 2025 implies that Paramount outbid Netflix and Apple, which is significant. And which is something to watch going forward, in addition to maybe watching the show at some point in 2026.
Yeah, I'm an idiot because, when all of the Paramount stuff was happening last year or over the course of the last couple of years, and I was sort of reading about it in the trades and reading about it in Bellany's column, and it was like, is Ellison going to get this from Shari Redstone, and is he going to buy the mountain? And it almost seemed like he had to like scrape together money. This is just my, like he was shaking couch cushions to find like the last $1 million to get it over the line. And now that he has Paramount, it seems like he's like, oh no, that like now the vault opens. And now I'm going to buy Warner Brothers and buy this show, buy the Duffers and buy like, and now he's like giving James Mangold an overall. Like, it seems like you're right. Like Paramount's a rival, but their willingness to spend. It's like they may cut CBS News down to basically being like 3 hot take artists, but it does seem like they are spending a ton of money on actual shows and movies, which I think is a good thing for what's left of Hollywood.
Is 60 Minutes going to be like that OZY.com where was that dude being like, I've talked to Lisa Ling or whatever, and everyone's like, this is a success, clearly. Anyway, Trump pardoned him. The fun thing is about the Paramount deal is maybe he really was just scraping things together a year and a half ago. But then all these weird coincidences happened. Like his dad just got permission to buy TikTok, like, so it seems like, I don't know, like fortune favors the bold, I guess.
Why aren't we more like that?
I don't know.
We should have thrown in just like a cheeky offer for this Nicole Kidman show.
What was the show that we were bidding out? Our listeners will remember. We wanted to be heads of AMC. Yes. I still think that's a legitimate thing. Yes. I do think that they're like, honestly, my pitch is why not? The Anne Rice universe manages itself. Sure. God bless. We will retain the leadership structure behind the vampire shows. Like that is my first order of business. Everything else, just let us.
What's the first AMC 18-month catalog show that you would want to reboot?
Remember When?
Yeah.
Their first ever show before Mad Men. No, well, like I think that we could get a little cheeky in the international marketplace, like AMC has been doing with like spy shows and things and co-pros. I think that there might be some opportunities to do the versions of like mid AMC shows, like Lodge 49 or the one that I never remember the name of, the Bob Odenkirk, Lucky Hank.
Yep.
I don't think either of those shows were complete successes, but I also don't think they were failures. And I think they scratched a niche that does exist in TV and can be done at a price point.
It's that kind of middle of the road thinking that's going to get us to the top.
I think 100%. The other thing is, though, I would greenlight the Sally Draper in the Downtown 81 Mad Men spinoff.
This is why we've been put on this planet. It's to see Heat 2 come out and to put Sally Draper in the Mud Club.
Yep. Let's just do it. We'll make that show.
Yeah.
Vote for us. Or we'll cut the government in on a sweetheart deal.
That's right.
Whatever it takes.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll go talk about the Lowdown and House of Guinness. Let's talk about episodes 3 and 4 of the Lowdown. 4 was especially lovely to me, directed by Macon Blair and written by Duffy Boudreau. Macon Blair is a frequent collaborator with Jeremy Saulnier. He also plays the lawyer in this series in the Lowdown. And Duffy Boudreau is a name you may remember from especially the written by credit in Barry. He is a frequent collaborator with Bill Hader. Bill Hader and Duffy Boudreau, also from Tulsa, much like Sterling Harjo. So kind of a family affair here. And I was thinking about how one term we used to use during the era of like truly peak prestige television was the idea of long form series television being novelistic, and I think we referred frequently, people called The Wire like novelistic in its storytelling.
Even its creator, David Simon, did that on occasion.
Its creator, David Simon. The Lowdown really does feel novelistic for all the good reasons, and even some of the reasons where it's like, sometimes I have a hard time settling down enough to read a novel. And there are times when I turn the Lowdown on and I'm like, oh, okay, like we are moving at a slower pace and we are moving at a different pace than like most of my consumption is moving at over the course of my day when I have my phone in my hand for 11 hours of it. And it takes a second to get into the water, and to like let it wash over you. And this is a really good example. This episode 4, which is called Short on Cowboys, it kind of starts 3 times. It's got this sort of fantastical Tim Blake Nelson narration. It's got a kind of lazy, awesome 10-minute scene at a diner between a father, a daughter, and a mother. And then it really gets going, and you get like basically a half-hour short film about a tryst between Jean Triplehorn's Betty Jo character and Ethan Hawke's Lee character.
We could call it Before Hangover.
That's right, because they do drink more tequila than I think most people east of Tulsa can handle.
I felt quite ill, honestly, watching it. I felt concerned.
What did you think of this episode? How are you feeling about the show in general?
I want to talk specifically about this episode and also last week's, which we didn't really touch on, about the Beluga brothers. But I want to say something broader. I want to give my campaign speech here, which is to say, if you listen to this podcast and if you've listened to it for a while, chances are you like television a certain way. It doesn't mean we may not all agree. I'm like that brewery owner in Maine. Like I'm just bringing people together here. We're one country. We may not agree on all of the shows that we love or what we want to see week to week on television. And I think there are people who are indulging our love of Task, and they think we only like it because we're from Philadelphia, which is only maybe 10% true. I actually think it's approaching like masterpiece status, and we'll talk about that on Monday. But I do think that one common thread that unites all of us is that we want television to be good and interesting and, for lack of a better word, brave. Mm-hmm. And brave could mean something like Adolescence, which is both aesthetically brave and also, I think, creatively brave, and certainly thematically brave. Or it could just mean purely aesthetically brave, like the Lowdown is. And so what I want to ask everyone in this great, big, beautiful country of ours is a simple thing. And I feel like we don't use this as a bully pulpit enough. I want all of you to watch the Lowdown. I want you to record it download it from your Hulu app or put it on your TiVo or watch it on television. I don't even know what matters anymore.
Spank a new Maxell cassette, put it in the VHS.
Because this is what we are always talking about. It is absolutely idiosyncratic. It is unique. It is funny. It is heartfelt. It is stakesy. It is exciting. It is surprising. It gives actors great opportunities to work and to bring joy, like Kyle MacLachlan, Keith David, Tim Blake Nelson, Michael Hitchcock, like an all-star team of those guys doing elite work. Jean Triplehorn in this episode especially. Scott Shepard, just people who are our friend of the pod, Tracy Letts, just people willing to show up and work because they know that they're working with a creator in Sterling who's going to take care of them and showcase them and give them stuff to do. And also, I've been railing for years against the auteur theory of television, but I do think that Sterling Harjo is the kind of auteur that we need and that we want. Because there are elements in the show that, like you said, that kind of just don't make sense if you watch normie TV all the time. Like Tim Blake Nelson narrating from the afterlife and then sitting next to Ethan Hawke and his daughter, and they both look at him. Or the way it becomes like Double Indemnity briefly when it's already been something else for a long time. And then it cuts to, like the security guard dudes doing a rap on YouTube in front of a car that's on fire. There are moments on the show where I'm like, oh yeah, obviously Sterling likes Twin Peaks. Like the moment in episode 4 when Betty, what's her name? Betty, she has a second name. That's
Betty Jo.
Jean Triplehorn's character, Betty Jo, opens the door to the room where Tim Blake Nelson's character supposedly or probably killed himself. And I'm like, oh, this is a Twin Peaks moment. The way this room is lit, the way the sound design is.
Do you know what else is a Twin Peaks moment? Ethan Hawke's character introducing himself as Agent Cooper in the third episode. I
was about to say that. Exactly. But also, you could tell that Sterling loved Twin Peaks, and he also loved Twin Peaks The Return, because Kyle is giving some Mr. C energy when he gets furious in this episode with his face. I say that not because it's cool that a guy who makes a TV show likes the same stuff that I do. I'm saying it because it's not fucking pastiche. This is a guy who knows how to make films, knows how to tell a story, lives in a place, knows things, and is generous enough to share them with us, and has been given a platform to just fucking leave it all out there. And I, like you're saying, I have no idea if it's succeeding or failing on commercial terms, but I think so far it is 100% succeeding on artistic terms. And sometimes we got to show up and support that shit.
Yeah. And I think that the payoff for this show at the end of every episode that I've watched, and I would imagine at the end of this season itself, is going to be like that of finishing a great novel, where it's unlike anything else legal you can really do with your brain. It is really the most enriching, beautiful, three-dimensional experience and imaginative experience you can have. And this show feels different than weekly mystery box puzzle shows. And it's really lovely to have this and Task on at the same time, because I think it shows the huge spectrum of not only enjoyment, but intellectual stimulation and emotional kind of fulfillment you can get from crime shows and from crime fiction, because you're putting these characters, many of whom are pretty normal people, in broken situations and putting them in extraordinary circumstances and asking them to make these incredibly complex and consequential moral decisions about what to do next and what to do to fix things that have happened in the past, to fix things that will happen in the future. And they bring out really amazing performances. And, you talked about the incredible Murderer's Row of supporting actors, but like, this is among Ethan Hawke's best performances.
I wanted to say that too.
And the reason why I think that is, it is both a fucking movie star Paul Newman performance, and it is also like a freak, like used bookstore guy performance. And he's able to have both an incredibly cool, charismatic, attractive quality to him, while also being the kind of guy you find flipping through records, or through used books at a store in Tulsa. And it's kind of remarkable to watch him cook like on this level. I mean, obviously you and I were fans of Good Lord Bird. We've been fans of his work for such a long time, but this is such a titanic undertaking. He has to do so much shit in every scene. He has to be a lover. He has to be a fighter. He has to be afraid. He has to be a convincing writer, and he has to be a comedian. He does it all so well.
He's such an interesting performer, and we love him for a long time, but like he never quite fits, right? Because he's a freak. Like he's too weird and too obsessed with the little, like, he's like, speaking of crime novels, like there's always a scene like in a classic George Pelecanos novel where someone drops the cocaine and then they're like going through the carpet fibers. Like that's how Ethan Hawke approaches a script. And often movies that aren't directed by Richard Linklater don't know what to do with that. Like it's too much, and it's also diffuse, and yet he's handsome and charismatic and famous enough to lead a television show in the Prestige era. Serlin knows how to work with him, which I think means to collaborate with him, because he fits the frame on this show in a way that suits everyone involved, and it's really exciting to watch. Now, I'm not saying the show is perfect, which is one of the reasons why I like it. The third episode, and again, this might have been the jet lag talking, but the third episode is challenging. And I think it would be challenging for normies who are like, want to pick up this flag and carry it for a little while. The setup is essentially that in order to pursue this reckless investigation of a potential suicide of the estranged brother of the gubernatorial candidate, they must drive to Ethan Hawke's character, Lee, his daughter, and his frenemy, Michael Hitchcock's character, who is a rival antiques dealer, must drive to a lake somewhere outside of Tulsa in Oklahoma and somehow either woo or confuse or distract a scary or like aggressive Mexican-American antiques dealer who has come into the possession of a box of the dead brothers Jim Thompson novels.
Yes, which include letters that the guy has been writing or diary entries that the guy has been writing that will then help him elliptically piece together a massive conspiracy.
And if you think this sounds like, and I feel like it's okay to spoil it because I'm either convincing you or you've already seen it, if you think that sounds complicated, what if I told you that what actually happens is Michael Hitchcock's character just drinks whiskey alone in a diner while the daughter meets the scary antiques dealer and steals the books, while Ethan Hawke steals a park ranger jacket and then gets enveloped in a violent backwoods caviar theft, but also it's also a love story about poetry. Mm-hmm. Dude, that's fucking nuts. And I think that everyone involved is like, I guess John Landgraf was on set on Alien Earth that day when we greenlit this. You know what I mean? But God bless them for greenlighting it and giving him the space to do this. It's worth it when you have the chance to invest in something like this, both as a network and as a viewer. Usually
with a mystery show like this, I think you and I would spend a fair amount of time talking about the narrative. I'm more here for Ethan Hawke walking down the street and someone asks him what his favorite Michael Curtiz movie is.
I know.
And when something like that is happening, and the way that even Macon Blair films that, and the way that they sound design it, where it's kind of happening in an Altman-y way. A conversation is happening as Ethan Hawke is walking by, but Ethan Hawke is being asked to weigh in on this debate between a used record store guy and his customer. And like, what's your favorite Michael Curtiz movie? And he's like, what? What are you talking about? And he's just like, oh, I thought you were going to say Boy from Oklahoma. And he's like, no, Captain Blood. And it's just a second, but I'm like, I can't fucking believe this is happening. Like, this is the dream of the 90s is back,
Life goes on. Well, Pavement's more popular than ever. Like maybe these clothes we like are finally coming back into fashion, or at least our gum.
The sort of recurring bit that this used record store proprietor has is that he is getting rid of loiterers, that there are all these people at this strip in Tulsa where Lee's bookstore and this record store and a diner and a law office are, that this guy is like, somebody was loitering outside your store, so I told him no loitering. And this show is loitering. This show is just fucking hanging out. And you may have to like adjust your brain a little bit when you do that, because I don't know that we hang out with television as much anymore, especially 55-minute mystery dramedies. We're more like, oh yeah, I like to hang out with my sitcom buddies for 22 minutes and then get the fuck out.
Or white knuckle it with my pals in the pit.
Yes.
Like, I love these people, so it's worth it, even though they're sawing off someone's leg. I want an extremity of emotion. I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to like feel. I don't want to have to pay attention. I want to be able to kind of either, I want a drug experience. I either want an upper or a downer. It's also, to go back to the novelistic example, it's okay to love disliking something. Like these emotions are closely related. And like, there are a lot of books. Like I talked about on the pod the other week, like I had, because you just, the way you casually just reveal things about yourself only on this podcast, that you've read every Robert Stone novel. And I was like, excuse me, I'm right here on the other end of this text thread. So I went and I got this Robert Stone novel called Children of Light. And I'm here to tell you, as I told you over text, it's awful.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Lowdown is awful. I'm just saying it's cool to engage with art that inflames you one way or the other. And my guess is, and I don't have anything to back this up, I'd be curious if people would write to our email address or whatever and say, I'm curious if there is a percentage of people who are like, I love the Lowdown 1, I love the Lowdown 2, and I was out on Lowdown 3. I'm curious about that. And
I think maybe it would be people who are like, I've gotten to Lowdown 3 and it's just too sleepy, or it's too, maybe they don't give a shit about Michael Curtiz and Junior Kimbrough, and they're just like, watching people drink coffee for 11 minutes and read letters to each other is, I got to keep on a schedule here.
As someone with a 12-year-old who's recently very coffee curious, I really felt seen by that.
So what do you do with that?
Do you know what she loves right now is decaf.
Yeah, but there is a trace amount of caffeine in that, right?
Yeah, and she likes matcha lattes. Those are really big with the kids.
Okay.
So I try to cut those. I let that happen, but usually like pre 1 p.m.,
I used to just drink the sweetest possible, but the largest possible Dunkin' Donuts. So it would just be like French vanilla with French vanilla creamer and sugar.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
like, when I didn't understand that they made the coffee itself taste like French vanilla.
You added extra. Yeah. I want to be clear when I say that she likes coffee. What she likes is a warm mug, giant mug of milk with like some light decaf coffee flavoring.
Yes.
Last thing, I feel like we've said our piece, but you mentioned Duffy Boudreau. I won't spoil the end of 4 since we're kind of like hopefully getting people to watch it. But there's a violent sequence at the end of 4 that is very Barry-core. It really reminded me of Barry in its mix of like the macabre and the intense and the outrageous
very
and
much
funny.
So that's a great shout. A much different animal is House of Guinness, which we haven't talked about. Came out a couple of weeks ago on Netflix. It's the new show from Stephen Knight, which I think I will sort of generally tar with this brush of it's Stephen Knight's Succession,
okay.
effort. It's about...
Do you want to give background to Stephen Knight? Because when you say the new Stephen Knight show, there's often 2 a year.
7 of them, yeah. Stephen Knight is one of the most prolific and successful TV creators that we have right now. He is essentially like England's answer to Taylor Sheridan in some ways. He frequently writes these rather muscular, historically minded, often period piece TV shows. I love him. He is... the creator of Rogue Heroes, which is my favorite series by him. But obviously, I also am very, very into Peaky Blinders, and evidently so is everybody else, because there is not only a Peaky Blinders movie, but a new Peaky Blinders spin-off series in the making that should arrive at some time, in the next couple of years. And that is set in the aftermath of World War II, which is pretty exciting because Peaky Blinders is really good, and it's also a really interesting historical time period. He also, just last year, put out a show that I never got a chance to see because I don't think it came out here, called This Town, which was about the two-tone moment
that never
in
did
England.
come out here officially. But he also did 1,000 Blows, didn't he?
Yeah, and 1,000 Blows. And he's a prolific screenwriter in films. Writing, he was working on a Star Wars movie. He's, just always writing. So House of Guinness is a show which I think you could be uncharitable and be like, oh, he saw Succession and was like, I can do that. And it is about the death of the patriarch of the Guinness family, as I believe it's sort of in the early 20th century. And the efforts of his children to keep his alcohol empire together, as Guinness is sort of becoming a global brand, and Ireland is facing a moment of revolution, and also a temperance movement, and also the kids themselves are at each other's throats. And
would you, if you had the ability, would you travel back in time to the Guinness patriarch's deathbed, and as he's passing, whisper in his ear a full explanation of dickheads splitting the G at the Devonshire, just on Instagram? Would you just let him know?
See, I can tell you're getting a little bit too crabby, because a year and a half ago, you were like, I can't wait to be a dickhead splitting the G at the Devonshire.
We are the problem. I think we're self-aware. I'm just saying, it's funny watching a show, and maybe this is why Guinness allowed their trademark and their name to be in it, because it is based on historical fact, but it's very salacious and out there. But they won. Guinness has never, ever, ever been trendier or more popular.
Yes.
So congratulations. Sláinte.
Historically minded, but historically loose with tone, I would call this show. And I in Rogue Heroes, I enjoy the rock and roll approach to a World War II movie, and kind of imagining the Dirty Dozen, but with the White Stripes playing in the background, is essentially how Rogue Heroes kind of presents things. The House of Guinness is really chaotic to start with. There's a lot going on. You are introduced to about 15 to 16 people instantaneously, and they are only on screen for 10 seconds at a time. And
they're all beating the shit out of each other.
And they're
with
all
tire
beating the
irons.
shit out of each other, or doing drugs, or drinking, or having hangovers, or they're related. And even though it's the early 20th century, the Fontaines DC are playing.
Many times, yeah. Yes. A lot of needle drops. But there's also a lot of animations or animatics, explaining things and saying power, intrigue.
Yeah.
Also, this is the history of Ireland at this period. It's a very noisy show. We
were talking about whether or not TV needs a better hype machine, and I almost wonder whether Stephen Knight backed into some weird thing, which it feels like you're watching the first episode, especially, and I've watched 2. And I think I will keep watching it because it is definitely the kind of thing that I like to throw on at 10 p.m. and just veg out and watch. But Stephen,
I find it very stressful. But
the first episode, though, is like a pitch deck for the show.
Yes, that's well said.
And it almost feels like a proof of concept that he made for Netflix, and Netflix was like, "That's the first episode." And maybe that works. Maybe that's a good idea.
I mean, it feels like an interesting collision between the rock and roll history sensibility that you're talking about, a kind of British television aesthetic that I want to ask you about, because I feel like you watch a lot more of this than I do generally, and Netflix's global domination strategy. Like, the way this show starts, it's clearly a Netflix show. It yells at you about what it is so quickly that you're almost like held captive by it. That didn't really work for me. I'll say that, like, Stephen Knight is a very clever writer, and he's incredibly accomplished, and just like in his bones knows how to build story almost out of anything. It seems like he's like a savant, and there's so many good actors in it, as there tend to be in Stephen Knight productions, like Anthony Boyle, who is
awesome.
One of the best young actors.
James Norton.
working. That's James Norton, right? I knew I recognized him. We saw Anthony Boyle in Say Nothing recently.
Yeah,
he was in a completely different role.
And the Lincoln assassination show. He was
that's right.
Booth. Yeah.
And Louis Partridge is one of the stars. And Louis Partridge is famous for being the male boyfriend in the Enola Holmes movies, which get a lot of burn in my household.
Yeah.
And also dating Olivia Rodrigo.
Just so a steaming hot cup of decaf in an Enola Holmes movie. It sounds like a Saturday night.
Don't make me more homesick than I already am. And then also like a couple other fun things on the margins, like Jack Leeson, who famously retired from acting or took a step back from acting after Game of Thrones, returning to the screen in this in a fun way. I have no hate in my heart for this, but I have to say, like, there's a certain aesthetic, and it's not so much the needle drops, although they do feel really glib. Especially when it's just like, things are about to get serious, lads. And then Fontaine's drops and people knock each other's teeth out. Like, it's like, what are the actual... This is violence. Do you know what I mean? And after watching like two men grapple with their sins in Task on Sunday nights, like, it's sort of hard to see this kind of like savagery without any reflection whatsoever. But there's an aesthetic, and maybe this is the Stephen Knight rock and roll history aesthetic, but the show, it used to be like 20, 30 years ago, British imports like BBC One Original or things that ended up on Masterpiece Theatre or Mystery, they all looked a certain way, whether it was the lighting or the camera. It just didn't look like American television.
Now that's just a global television aesthetic.
But this is the particularly British flavor of it. And it's leached into shows that we've loved. I think there was a little bit of it in the Pursuit of... Pursuit of Love, the Emily Mortimer series, which I adored. But there's also a ton of it in... you have better recall than I do, and I'm jet lagged. But like other shows like this, Thousand Blows, for example, or other non-Stephen Knight shows.
Yeah,
and it doesn't
just honestly feel significantly different than Mobland. You know, like there is a kind.
Yeah, it's a certain recognizable aesthetic that I'm just not. It's serviceable and it works, but it does seem like a mass market export product right now, like Guinness itself, and I'm not vibing with it. So
there is just something really interesting. I called it Succession, Stephen Knight's Succession, and there's obvious reasons for that because of the plot setup, but there is also a few quiet moments in the opening episodes of inter-family banter that I think it doesn't necessarily reach Jesse Armstrong levels of like symphonic put-downs, but is kind of a different show. It's a different show than the one that seems to be taking place in the same sound stages that they shot Peaky Blinders, and is a lot of rock and roll while people are throwing Molotov cocktails around. The stuff that I'm here for is the family stuff. So I'll continue to check it out, but I'm glad you at least gave it a look. And I do think that there's something to the universal British export aesthetic that we're arriving at.
Yeah, I mean, it's just... And maybe that's a more natural segue from the thing we're saying about the Lowdown, because certainly a lot of the homogenization of global television and global television made for Netflix is because of Netflix, and it's also because of an American aesthetic that has. Well, I mean, I think that
the ultimate test is like the Lowdown dares you to be bored. Like they're like, if you may think that this scene is going on too long, but this is actually how people talk. And House of Guinness is like, you will never get bored because the scene changes every 37 seconds.
The other thing that I think that differentiates, I mean, a lot of things differentiate the Lowdown from House of Guinness. I mean, the only thing that they have in common is, I think, alcohol. But the other thing about the Lowdown that feels really refreshing at this moment is that it doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
And so much of the way we talk about contemporary television is we talk about it in terms of, yes, sticking the landing, or, answering the questions, or servicing X, Y, or Z thing. And it does become this weird like exam structure where we're like, okay, well, what does Alien Earth have to do to keep us interested or make us feel like it was worth it? What did Noah Hawley have to do to please the deep xenomorph heads like yourself, and then also bring in noobs? Like, that's a lot of have-tos.
Yeah.
And it's such a privilege to watch a show that absolutely didn't have to do anything except just march to the beat of its own twangy drummer. Drummers aren't twangy.
Let's wrap it up there.
Guitars are twangy.
Thanks to Kai.
I'm fading, but I'm good.
And Kai, we'll be back on Monday. Greenwald will be with me to talk about Task online, but we may have some extra stuff on Monday. So everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy Task on Sunday night, and we'll see you on Monday.